the Zapruder tape. He stands up and he starts playing this tape. It was the Zapruder tape of the Kennedy assassination, but then he slowed it way down. And it was so slow that you could almost see the air moving. Then you saw the driver take a gun and go like this and shoot Kennedy, and the bullet comes out of the gun this slow, very, very, very slow. And it hits Kennedy in the head, and you see everything flying out of his head. And I'm thinking, this isn't the tape I ever saw before. So I said, is this a doctored tape? What's this about? And he said, this is the original one. And I said, no, you know. And he says, well, I'm going to show you the one that you've seen on the media. Now, the next tape is your typical one where the driver just keeps driving, never even flinches with the gun. And he stops the tape. And he says, look at the tree. And there's the top of a tree growing in air. And he says, this is the one that you're seeing on the media. And it's been doctored. He looked very, very intently at me and he said, nothing is as it appears to be.
What if the entire world you live in is a lie, and everyone around you is too deep in the program to even notice? 90% of people are sleepwalking. Their eyes are open, but their minds, caged. They wake up, go to work, scroll, obey, never questioning the script. But then there's the 5%, the ones who feel the glitch, the ones who know something is off. They're trying to wake up the rest, but there's a problem. The 1%, the puppet masters. They can't have the sleepers waking up, so they unleash the other 4%. The trolls, the gatekeepers, the fact checkers. Their job, mock, silence, dismiss. They don't fight with guns. They fight with algorithms, propaganda, and fear. And here's the darkest part. The 90% defend their chains. They laugh at the ones trying to free them. They call the truth a threat. They protect the prison that keeps them small. So if you've been losing friends, if no one understands you, if the world feels insane, maybe you're not crazy. Maybe you're just awake. And if that's true, what are they so afraid of? You be the judge. If you're awake, you already know what to do. Hit the link in our bio and join our free underground newsletter.
Silverstein seemed in a big hurry to close the deal. Even though he had been hospitalized for a car accident during the bidding operations, he asked his doctors to take him off the morphine so the deal could be finalized.
So I told the doctor, I said, kill the morphine, and I got to get my people in here, because you can't think with morphine. So they let the morphine run down. The pain was terrible, but I brought everybody together, and that's when we framed our best and final bid.
Silverstein signed the lease on the World Trade Center just 6 weeks before 9/11.
He then took out an insurance policy covering the Twin Towers for $3.2 billion in case of total destruction. Silverstein then began spending every morning of the week in his new office in the North Tower.
And so my mornings were spent at the Trade Center, and then by noon I was back uptown.
But on September 11, luckily for him, Silverstein didn't go to work. Even though he had already scheduled a business meeting in the North Tower, he found out that his wife had made an appointment for him at the dermatologist.
The morning of September 11th, Silverstein was scheduled to have breakfast at the restaurant at the top of the North Tower. He canceled at the last minute at the insistence of his wife, Clara, who wanted him to go see his dermatologist.
That particular morning, my wife, God bless her, had made an appointment for me at the doctor. And I said, okay, yes, dear, I'll go.
Everyone who was in that restaurant that morning perished.
And then, just minutes later, received a telephone call to turn on a television set and witnessed this horrendous circumstance.
And since the terrorist attacks had been two separate events, contended Silverstein, the insurance companies would have to pay him $7 billion to rebuild what he has always been calling My Three Towers. Eventually, a settlement was reached for $4.5 billion, which was still 1/3 more than the amount initially insured by Silverstein. And since on September 11, due to the terrorist attacks, Building 7 had also been destroyed. Silverstein received another $800 million to rebuild a skyscraper that had originally cost $400 million. In the meantime, all the asbestos from the Twin Towers has been inhaled by the citizens of downtown Manhattan, and especially by the first responders and volunteers who worked at Ground Zero, who are now being decimated by mesothelioma and other pulmonary diseases.
One man that was controlled quite a bit by the Jews was this man, George Bush. Now we look at all of Bill Clinton's cabinet members, including the Supreme Court justices that he appointed. Jew. Stephen Breyer, Jewish fanatic appointed by Bill Clinton to office. A second Supreme Court justice appointed by Bill Clinton, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Time magazine had an interesting cover. Talked about the most powerful financial mavens in America. Here is Alan Greenspan. He's Jewish. They say he's the most powerful man in the world. He runs the Federal Reserve System, the banking system of the United States, which controls the banking system of the world, supposedly. Of course, there's the little deal of the Rothschilds who control it, but that's another matter. Mickey Cantor, under Bill Clinton, he's Jewish. Here is Mr. John Deutsch, the director of the CIA, also one of the top executives, Nora Slotkin of the CIA. And then there, the magazine says that this is David Cohen, the deputy director of operations for the CIA. The top 3 people in the Central Intelligence Agency, our nation's premier spy agency, all Jews.